4, 3, 2, rewind.
Rise of the Fallen, MMO Quest, Pantheon. Once again, time to pledge. Very excited. We're here to talk. Let's get this party to
share your thoughts.
Co-host Derek.
Weekly Adventures, co-host Desrin. We're almost professional.
Full disclosure.
Dangerous combination. Creating content and optimizations. I've got a lore video coming. Cannot wait, which is all about drone fast and some sort of like cake. Mail on a Sunday.
News and notes.
Schedule for this week.
Hot cocoa. All these people.
Supports the show. Adventuring party.
You ready? Let's go.
Let me take a deep breath.
Salutations, Exile. Friends and fellow Pantheon lovers. Welcome to another episode of the Pantheon Plus Rewind, our bi-weekly podcast that brings you up to date with official news and community happenings, all surrounding the upcoming MMORPG, Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. This episode will be focusing on this last week's developer live stream that digs deep into the Dire Lord, take a quick look at some of the many new cards for the Pantheon community draft, spotlight some community content as usual, and end the show by keeping the Dire Lord theme with the story of the signature character, Arakamel. Oh, and some exciting news about a certain collaboration. Grab a pickaxe and a shovel and join me, Desrin, and my devouring co-host, Theric, as we delve deep into the dark, the dank, and the dire. We really hope you enjoy this edition of The Rewind.
Desrin, that might be the best intro we've ever had.
Really?
That was amazing. That might be the best intro we've ever had. The deep, dark, dank, and dire. Oh my gosh.
Well,
Dude,
thanks, man. I feel very inspired lately.
That was, yeah, you're inspired. That you feel the dire consuming you?
I was already pretty partial to the Dire Lord, and really partial to this story that I really hope people stick around to hear. It's one of my favorites at the end of the show. But the keen-eared among you may notice that I'm no longer recording in like a cave echo chamber.
Yeah, there's some padding. It sounds like to your voice. It doesn't sound like you're in a aluminum box. So which is nice. Because,
it's very nice. I moved into my new place, and the acoustics are really great when you have furniture in the room. It turns out.
Who knew, right? Who knew? Yeah, furniture makes all the difference. That's great. Yeah, your move went well. It sounds like. Yeah,
I'm super happy. I am back in California, so everybody, throw all of your insults at me right now. Everybody at the premiere, just give me your worst.
But California hippies, what's going on out there? You got to get out there and set things right.
Indeed. But no, it's really good. I can't wait to do some more work on the sound here and maybe do some content. Like I said, I'm feeling kind of inspired. So
dude, yeah, when your muse speaks to you, listen. You go with it. So, who else is speaking to us though right now?
Dude,
our adventure party.
That was so good.
Yeah, there you go. So why don't you tell us who's in the party this week?
Okay, so we've got Daimlos on the Darkmer Bard, Breakout on the Archai Shaman, Grogu on the Human Warrior, Anton on the Darkmer Shaman Glyph Keeper, Ziplocks on the Darkmer Rogue, Sparrow on the Elf Ranger, Bounty Code on the Human Wizard, Screech on the Scar Bard, Wiki Woo on the Human Enchanter, Shuriken on the Dwarf Cleric. Let's go! Horsosaurus on the Human Warrior, Fury Wrath on the Archai Summoner, Churro Dude on the Halfling Dire Lord, Pavejo on the Gnome Wizard, Galarain Moonsong on the Elf Ranger, Annoying Llama on the Human Monk, and Stands in the Dire on the Dark Myr Cleric.
Even gave him the dire. I love it. Wow, you're on point today. And hitting with the Shuriken. Let's go. Yeah, Shuriken always there for the premiere. Always with the let's go. Love it. Good stuff, man.
Yep. And we super appreciate all of you guys that, stick around every week or every other week now and go for our Patreon to get your names up on the list here. And we could, hopefully have a little bit of creative liberty to have fun with you. but otherwise, if you want your name on the scrolling banner throughout the video, you can drop us a super chat or super thanks on YouTube, either during the premiere or in the comments below.
Yes,
Dude.
that's right. Dude, let's get going. I got dire on the brain. It's eating in my brain. I gotta deal with
Ooh,
it.
eating at our brains a little bit. It's infiltrating our minds. So let's get on to the news.
This week in Visionary Realms news and notes. All right, so we got this month's developer update from VR, which came out on Thursday, April 13th, and it was both, kind of specific and somewhat general in the information that they gave to the community as a whole. The feature piece was another class-based update with some general information about how the Dire Lord class is sort of shaping up. Also, really some specific abilities were shown and discussed at length. The stream also shared some insights from recent testing sessions, as well as some pretty granular patch notes about other classes and some other things. So if you didn't catch the live stream, it is up on VR's YouTube channel, and it's actually a bit shorter than their usual streams. It clocks in, I think, just under 40 minutes. So it's quite digestible if you have a lunch hour to listen to it or whatever. So Desmond, let's kind of go through it, I guess, in the order in which they did. And I want to start with the insights that they noted from their pre-alpha testing, because they gave us quite a bit of information that, what's been happening and what the feedback they've been getting. In fact, they actually revealed that to the greater community that not only have these monthly test sessions been happening and running as scheduled, but just this past week, they had 2 ad hoc testing sessions. The first one on April 7th, and then another one on April 12th. So actually, if you remember, I think it was last year, they said they wanted to do more of these on-demand or these ad hoc sessions. And we talked about it on the show, what that meant and what that might look like. So we're finally getting to see that and getting to get a feel for it. Ronik shared that one of the test sessions this week was basically just to help them test their persistence server. And what they wanted everyone to do was make new characters and get them sort of concentrated in a single area to put it through its paces. Probably they might have needed to specify which class to play, because all the classes, even in pre-alpha, start in different areas of Thronefast. That's so. It worked out, though. I think they got the information they needed to. I mean, I think there was a good, healthy population that logged in and they sort of tested what they were looking for, I think. Yeah,
well, like 2 things on this. So, one, it's really cool that they noted that a ton of people made new characters, like just because they asked.
Yeah. It was hard to do, actually. I'm like, oh, no, I want to play my character.
Well, right. And, because it looks like VR hasn't said that there's been a wipe again, right? I'm sure a lot of folks are still trying to push, get their characters as high as possible before that wipe inevitably comes. So it just kind of goes to show how awesome the testers can be and how much they actually, want to help. It's one advantage to having this like tight-knit group, right?
Yeah, everybody's in the same mindset of like, we have a job to do, and we take our roles very seriously. So I love that.
Well, and I wanted to know, like, the creating the new characters, at least I suspect, wasn't for the sake of having everyone in the same place, but more to add more like entries to the persistence server, because that's new and they want to test that thoroughly, which shouldn't really have anything to do with like character density in the world, but it's more just more things the database needs to keep track of. So new characters, creating entries in that database. And either way, it sounds like it was incredibly successful. And I think that's a huge sigh of relief to everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. So good clarification there on whether we needed to be in the same place, because I wasn't 100% sure about that after listening to the way that Ronik described it last night. It definitely kudos to the PA testers out there. I mean, we're all busy, and sometimes these weekend tests, just people do things on the weekend. We're busy sometimes, but if you can help out by just logging in, that's a win. I think that this week, one of the tests was on a night where my partner and I had plans. Like we were gonna watch a show on Netflix, and I had to sort of like figure out how I was gonna tell her. I'm like, so there's kind of some testing tonight I need to do. So, but the thing is, I just needed to log in. I told her, I'm like, I just need to log in, do my little job, and I'll be done. And it's like minimal wife aggro. I managed to pull it off successfully. There was no problems. And so, if they keep running these so frequently, I mean, I am going to need some strategies, right? Like I'm going to need some help. So if you're out there listening, like throw me some lines, what can I say? Like what should I tell my wife that how can I explain these little ad hoc testing sessions when it's on a quote couples night, right? So
well, here, I've got a line for you, Theric. Don't worry about it, man. Seriously, testing's already at the point of this consistency where a lot of folks don't feel as feverishly compelled to make those dates anymore.
It's true.
It's almost like people are used to the monthly tests already, right? We're like a quarter into the year, and everyone's like, yeah, another test is here. So missing some time, it's kind of, I think it's totally fine at this point. And having said that, I did have a blast at the last one, even though I missed the previous, the one on Friday, because I was moving. So here, let me tell you about, all the awesome stuff that we did while you weren't online. So
yeah, that's about all, right? That's about all we can do because that's what it is. And NDA is a thing, but I agree with you. Like the sort of the mindset towards PA testing has changed to go from so infrequently to now they come up so quickly every month. It's like the last one just ended, the next one's here already. So there's definitely less feeling of, if I don't make this one, I'm not going to see another one for a long time. So in terms of what VR is seeing from the dev stream, Ronak said that these tests have been really focused overall on performance gains. And he said that they've seen higher frames per second. And they said, quote, a massive improvement in server stability. So, and the other way he described it, and what I thought was really nice to hear, was he said, quote, there's barely any hiccups holding player load is what they've seen recently. So Desrin, I mean, I think that sounds really good. I can tell you that I don't recall the server ever crashing, and I know that we have to be careful what we say here, but it seemed like what they were describing was representative of the experience for everybody. So what can we say to confirm or deny?
I think that would be under NDA, Theric.
So
there weren't any crashes. Oh shoot, sorry. Don't know what came over you. Sorry, Ben.
But this is exactly right. That is exactly what I'm talking about. It's like when they talk about these things now, it's like it sort of opens it up a little bit. Like it allows us to sort of say, yeah, that sounds right. Sounds right to me. So
we may or may not be able to validate those claims.
Right. So it's pretty funny, but it's good to hear. And I do think that they are making progress, and they've seen some significant progress on the networking side of things. There was a huge item that testers will definitely be happy to hear, and I think probably we're happy to hear. About the game in general, Ronak noted that in the upcoming test, tile hitching should be gone. So, Desrin, could it be true? Because they mentioned it. So the hitching was super annoying. If it's gone, I mean, this is going to be celebrated, I think, by testers. Minus's comments I thought were kind of interesting because he said it's always been there, and he said it's never been really a priority to deal with. They didn't really get into the technical aspect of why that hitching existed at all. I'm sure somebody knows. Maybe we could speculate, but I won't. But I think this is going to go a long way to alleviating some of the concerns that people had about performance when in the testing community, because I know that this drove you crazy, right? Like it really irked a lot of people.
Well, having a pretty sizable freeze, like periodically, they say the tile, on the tile lines, if you remember how everything's kind of split up into tile, there's definitely a problem, but I have said multiple times that I'm not worried about it, in spite of a ton of people kind of correlating it to the same, crossing chunk borders in Vanguard.
Right.
Like I've said so many times, like, it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. And that, they'll fix it eventually. And then it's just like, oh yeah, boom, they're fixed. So like, don't worry about it.
Yeah, that's the second time you said don't worry about it. I feel like that's the theme for today. Desmond's very chill, apparently.
I'm super chill today. Right?
He's in California now. He's got that sea breeze and like.
I'm pretty close to Humboldt County too, so make of that what you will.
So it's basically it's not a big deal, and it's gone now, and I'm like I said, I just for those that aren't as technically knowledgeable, or myself included, I think this is gonna feel better. It's gonna feel like a relief. So
can't confirm or deny that, but
yes, again, can't confirm or deny. There was another update Minus shared with regard to how some changes in how experience is being calculated. So they addressed basically a really significant issue that was happening, and that was the level gap in your party causing a real disparity or pushing the experience gain down so much. Let's just say basically if you were grouped with anybody who was even slightly above or below your level, you got brutally penalized on the XP. So now in the VIP community, there was more detail about the formulas that they use here and how this is calculated. But for the stream, basically Minus summed it up as being it's more playable as a team now. And all I can say is thank you. This was something I gave tons of feedback on after a previous monthly test, because what was happening was people were declining to group because soloing was just so much more XP efficient, and that's if that was the case going forward, it would be a real big hurdle for Pantheon, I think. Basically going against everything that it's supposed to be about grouping and choosing to be in a group. And it seems obvious that they were going to fix this, but I'm glad they did, and I'll take it.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing, is it was so blatantly wrong that of course they're going to fix it eventually. But yeah, it was a huge point of pain, I think, with all the testers. But they only have so many hands, so it's probably just something that eventually they had time to tweak. I am super glad they adjusted that system now. Part of me wishes that he had read out what the VIPs see in the patch notes on this one, but another part of me is kind of like, it's probably going to change again or change more as time goes on. But I'm thankful for what got changed, and it works well enough for now. Maybe we'll see it worked on a little bit more in the future. But yeah, just so just so you could group with people with a decent level variation without getting super penalized it's a big thing.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, this is the whole point of this game, is to encourage grouping and making grouping beneficial. So it was just something that glad they addressed it, and certainly want to keep it that way. So while we're not getting our XP penalized by being in a group anymore, it sounds like VR is of course compensating with upping this challenge on some mobs in the world a little bit. They shared during the stream that there's going to be increased difficulty of the dungeon NPCs, and they named those spirits that you saw at Spirit Manor during our PA gameplay video being one of the mob sets. They also said the orcs, the G'day bandits, and the goblins in the cave, except for one. Which, did you understand that reference they were making, that joke they were making about the rock splitter goblin?
I don't. I think it's probably just something that wasn't updated that they just kind of made a joke about. It just, I don't know. Maybe it was already updated. I think it was just them kind of goofing off of it.
Yeah, a little bit of an inside joke going on there, but the point being that we should expect these mobs to be quite a bit more difficult. And by difficult, they actually specified that the hit rating has been adjusted. So it sounds like being able to hit any sort of higher level cons is going to be way more difficult. And with that comes an increase in time to kill. And I feel like, this is something that is always getting tinkered with, like a lot of things in pre-alpha testing, but it does seem like this, and this is just my opinion, but this is really driven by player feedback very heavily, right? Like the whole time to kill, the difficulty, sort of tinkering with this stuff. VR said in the stream that they are listening to a lot of feedback, and it's a bigger discussion than maybe what we have time to touch on here does. But do you feel like the challenge level of the game is constantly changing and being super responsive to player feedback? Are mobs being constantly monkeyed around with based on feedback, or do you feel like they're being, it's still moving in the same direction?
Well, first of all, there's another conversation with the stuff that you just went over that I really want to touch on. Since we have a bit more time
Sure.
nowadays, right? But
Yeah.
but I'll come back to that. To answer your question, as far as adjusting to feedback, obviously it's a balance, right? Like they can't just knee jerk react to everything that players get up in arms about or suggest
Right.
on the forums or
Right.
something. And I really don't think they do. I like the devs. Devs have a pretty dang clear vision of the game, broadly speaking. It's one reason I have a lot of confidence that Pantheon's actually going to be a good game. But for things like time to kill, or like feel of the classes, specifics with that stuff, there's a lot of great things that they can take feedback on, and VR knows that broadly they want a pretty long time to kill, especially in comparison to other modern games. They want time for players to make meaningful decisions, like during the encounter, and generally like the player base supports that. So because like both the players and the devs have the same like broad goal, we can kind of all participate and help them to tinker that until it feels right for both us and the devs. So in essence, players get to help the devs achieve their vision, by like using specific feedback for broad things that we all agree on. I think it's a great loop, and I think they, like, by release, the classes are going to be, and just the general combat experience is just going to be super, super fleshed out because they do react to player feedback. But I think my biggest point, I guess, through all this is that they react to the right player feedback.
Yeah, that's the key, right? That's where I was kind of leaning in on, because I feel like they need to know, because everybody's going to react to their experience, have different reactions to their experience, and different expectations for what the time to kill, what the difficulty should look like and feel like, right? So I think they need to find those testers that are, have sort of demonstrated a similarity to what their expectations are, and sort of listen to that feedback a little more closely sometimes. So it's not to say like discount everybody, but I feel like, a lot of people are going to be coming from different places when they give their feedback on the combat difficulty, right?
Well, I think they're really good at picking those things apart. One thing I really respect from VR, like Joppa especially, if you're in the Discord and you see how like Joppa approaches criticism, it's pretty insane. like
yeah, I don't know how he does it. I don't think I have that in me to be as
but like he can really like, someone will go super ham about something, they're complaining or however it looks, right? And he'll like obviously address a part of it, and you could tell he's seeing through the like how how they're giving the feedback, and kind of processing that. And I think how the flow of things have worked, obviously just loosely speaking after being in PA for a while, is pretty good. Like I think even people that we might not agree with, I think the devs can still pull like good nuggets out of that. And they're definitely not going with the majority, right? Like it's they pull feedback when it's in accordance to their goals. And super good at that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's the point I was trying to make there, is like, it's just it's not constantly bouncing around. It's like, oh, they liked it this month, we're going to change it this way. Now we'd liked it this month, we're going to change it back this way. It's like there's consistency in the end point.
Yeah, I think I can echo that. They don't bounce around. It's not knee jerk, like it's consistent. But that other conversation, man, was huge for me. So you talked about, they're adjusting dungeon mobs, right?
Right.
So like, it may have just been confirmed that Pantheon now has, what some might call like elites or heroics or group mobs or overcons. Like basically it sounds like Pantheon is Yeah, veering from what they were trying to do, which was, making that mob difficulty have more to do with the relative level, and instead kind of a more traditional thing that, a lot of MMOs do, which is to have that, some mobs are just kind of designed to be solo, some for groups, and, so on. Like, I'm kind of conflicted on this, man.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but we talked about this not that long ago, and they've gone back and forth on this, I think once, where that at one time it was like dungeon mobs were definitely more difficult. They just had higher hit points. They had everything about them was enhanced. But then they changed it recently, and I want to say within the last 6 months, to where it was more about the environment was what was going to make the difference in the mob's difficulty, right? So mobs in Hellner Cave were more difficult because of
like mob
the
density and the
because of density, because
the
of
pulls and stuff like that,
and the environmental hazards.
Yeah.
All those were what they were relying on to increase the difficulty of the mobs, as opposed to what that used to be, where it was just stats, right? So I don't know. I mean, to me it sounds like, I don't know if I'm hearing what you're saying about there being a different class of mobs. I think what they're saying is like, this, at least in this stream, what they were saying was that there will be a different, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, they said that to hit rating, basically, to use the exact example, was going to be enhanced for certain groups of mobs. I don't know if that necessarily means like all their stats are increased. It's just like to actually do anything to them is more challenging. Once you are the appropriate level to damage them, they still are of the same, their statistics are still the same otherwise. Does that make any sense?
I think it was a little more than that. Like, because they were targeting these specific, basically overland dungeons, right? These camps that it seems like their intention is like, these are group camps now. And they're tuning the mobs in a different way than other mobs that are the same level, so that they will be group. And they even talked about, increasing the rewards alongside these. So it's basically just an elite without the border or whatever, depending on what game you're playing. And like I'm conflicted because so duos and trios, like, not full groups, they're really, really like dear to my heart. And I think it would have been a lot easier for people to acclimate to a group focused game if you don't always need a full group to do like, the points of interest and stuff. But it sounds like we've got group mobs now. So,
Well, yeah. I mean, maybe it's possible. I think we'll have to see what it looks like, but I don't see this being prohibited to duos and trios either. You just need to be solid in your gameplay ability, and you need to be capable to pull one at a time. I mean, to me it sounds more like they were just bumping up that ability to sort of start taking those mobs. Once you're of the ability to get there and start fighting them, then it's more a matter of your skill level. I don't know.
I guess we'll have to see how it plays out, very soon. But, I don't know. I understand.
So this is what I'm talking about. Just to go back for a second, this is previously like what I was talking about previously. Like, maybe, like, did this come from feedback? Like, did this come from player feedback where they're like, I only had a group of 3 this testing session. It would have been nice to have some mobs, or I guess conversely, because that's what's happening, is people saying, we were able to hold this camp with 3 people. It was no problem, right? So I don't know, where is that coming from?
Yeah, I mean, the system that they had laid out over the last, I think it's more like a couple years, when they've been trying to move, at least since HDRP, that they've been trying to move towards this, it's about the relative level. And it's because if you remember, like, they kind of outlined it, it's like +1 level is, duo, +2 levels, trio, +3, basically for each level above yours, you add an extra person. That's kind of like what the my guess is that it was just really, really hard to balance. And it introduces a lot of really difficult design problems. So my guess is that we're going to this more traditional thing because it's just easier to implement. And that's fine. Most of the games I've played have had some form of this, Vanguard with the bubbles and EQ2 heroic triple ups, like I don't hate that or anything. I was just really looking forward to it because when the system that they were proposing and trying to do, it kind of meant that no matter how many people you had, you could do like anything basically. It was just about relative level. But now I feel like they're starting to lean towards where, if you wanted to do like those, the spirit manor that we did as a group, like at what point can you duo that? Like, I feel like it's always going to be like really slow to duo that. And so I'm nervous about what it means for the in between solo to group. So I want to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I don't think that there's a perfect solution to it, because I've spent time thinking about this, and I just don't think there's a perfect solution. It's never going to be perfect for people that want to do a trio. It's never going to be perfect for a full group situation. They got to make some compromises somewhere, so we'll see how that plays out. You talk about putting, the chevrons on and, denoting or marking mobs as group intended mobs. I hope they don't do that. I know that Vanguard was fine and like I liked it okay, but I'm for a more just like I've always felt like I just want it to be more find out, just find out on your own and then learn, keep that knowledge, right? And I don't want it to be obvious. I know some people will really want that, but I don't think.
That's another conversation because when it comes down to it, if you're out and about with your friends, like, how are you going to figure out what is the right content for me?
You try it and you die.
I'm sure that's what a lot of the community will say, but it's, I don't know. I think there's a little bit more to it. The reason I like the, variable difficulties though, whether they're shown or not, and why I think Vanguard is an amazing example of this is because the bubbles kind of were representative of everything in between. Like, if you had two people, you'd probably be killing 3 bubbles together. If you had more people, it would be like 4. So like group stuff was usually 4 to 5 bubbles. Like, and there was content in the world that fit all of that at every level. Yeah. And that's a huge ask. It's a huge ask to have that much content. And
it is. I
just hope that VR has this in mind as they're making these changes.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's why I get nervous when I feel like the speed is, when I see too much focus on one area and it seems like they're going so slowly because you and I both know how much content this game needs. For so many reasons. We talked about it on P+U a little bit about like, you don't need to balance classes or class desirability if you add in content that gives those classes purpose, right?
That was a great combo, by the way. Check out the +U.
Yeah, Fate brought that up. I thought that was a really good point, and it feeds into what we're talking about here about, just the nature of the content that they're creating and the difficulty of it and all those things. So yeah, lots of good points there and conversations. So we'll see when we get in there what the difficulty is, and anyway, we'll get to our big announcement. Not announcement. You'll have seen
I was
it by
about
the time
to say,
you hear this.
If you watch this show, you probably already know what's coming up, but just in case,
Maybe you saw these new and enhanced mobs killing us repeatedly in our PA stream. I don't know, because it's Friday for us, and by the time you hear this, it'll be Sunday. So we'll have the answers to that. But, getting these kinds of details is pretty cool. And something that they've decided they want to share more of these types of patch notes, these kinds of PA testing details with the non-VIP community is very cool. I think this came up on Pantheon +U as well, the pros and cons about doing this. And, it certainly allows people to get a feel for what it feels like to be a part of these testing sessions if you're not. I think it can also have the unfortunate side effect of like taking away big picture details that people want to hear in these monthly developer updates, because people don't tune in for everything. This is their thing. They listen to these live stream updates. They want to know when alpha's coming, and that's really what they're about, right? So
Yeah.
all these details are pretty cool for PA testers without context. I feel like they may not be that useful for the greater community. We actually had a lot of people come on Pantheon Plus U and say, I'm not a PA tester. I love this stuff. So, what do I know, right? Like, this was my initial thought. It does show that they're working on things, which is the whole point. They love to tinker with the skills, the abilities. Minus also, admitted or acknowledged that the lack of context is something they're aware of when they're giving these things out. But your thoughts on this, Desrin? What do you think here?
Okay, I'm gonna get a little mad here. Okay, not really, but I'm gonna be critical for sure. And so,
Fair enough.
Pull up the soapbox here.
I'll try to assuage you at the end and say, hey, don't worry about it.
Thank you. I'm gonna need it. Because
okay, go.
So, I think that just picking out some almost semi-random, it seems like, notes without context, it doesn't do a lot for the non-testing community. I know a few people said like they liked the stream. I wonder if they liked specifically, the note about, this whatever ability has a vertical limit now, or this was fixed, like, and without even saying what the thing is that's fixed. Like, so like, it sounds like, and this is when you say Minus addressed it, it was literally in a negative way for me, because it sounds like this whole thing was intended to, like, tickles people's tendency to speculate. And I really, really don't like that. It's like intentionally being bad at communication, like just to get people talking. Like that is, I will always vote for context.
You're not wrong. I agree with you. I think that's definitely, that's another risk. Like, that's a big time con of doing something like this, where you put it out there and, like, let people sort of, let the tongues wag and see what people think about something they really don't know anything about. Right?
Yeah, so. No. like obviously they can't share everything, like talk about the whole class around, one update, but like, if they do this thing again, which I'm not against them doing it, just very differently. I just hope that they at least say a little bit about each note, or like why they picked this note out of, the slew of other things, because that's a whole other side of it. But like, for example, so the first note, after the, whole thing about dungeon or group mob rebalancing, which I think was a huge deal that they probably could have spent a lot of time elaborating on, but didn't. Anyway, so the first note after that was on the shaman. The note is saying, Hurry the Pass now works for all shaman heal over time spells. Derek, do you know what Hurry the Pass does?
No, I do not. I don't know. I don't play the shaman.
So, okay, I'd argue that you'd have to be really following Pantheon closely to be interested, or be super interested in the shaman, to know what that does without doing some research, or because at least this one's on the website, Derek. Some of the other ones weren't.
They aren't. Yeah, you're right.
Just to get the ability description to know, like, what this means. And again, it's also the way this hears is it works now, which is just like such an odd thing to pick for, what people most like. This is the dev stream. This is a monthly dev stream. People consider this to be like the biggest monthly, at least video content, right? Yeah.
So even if you didn't know what the skill was, all you're left to talk about with no knowledge of the skill is that it wasn't working.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Anyway.
So what does that leave you? Yeah.
And what kills me is, like, it's especially because there's a lot more exciting things in these patch notes that I can't talk about that weren't mentioned. So yeah, several abilities in these notes had no context, and it was basically like, this works now, with no further explanation. Like, even abilities that aren't on the website or haven't been talked about anytime recently or publicly, that is terrible communication. What bothers me even more is it kind of reinforces that, like, the skeptics, where they say, like, oh, these streams are like just to get people hyped, so that people keep pledging.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I admittedly, I just watched one of those videos, and like, that was one of the criticisms, was like, Anyway, but
Yeah.
but also it's done. That whole segment was just audio, so like it's just a bunch of rattling off patch notes, which is just if you're interested in like how people learn, it's just so bad for information retention. So like if they do this again, at least maybe some slides would be really helpful. And what's funny is Ronik actually mentioned, like, as an afterthought while reading them, he's like, oh, we should probably have these written out somewhere where people can see them. Like, dude, yeah, like, come on.
Yeah. Honestly, like, and how closely we follow it. I was writing notes during the stream so we could talk about it on People's
And I couldn't write fast enough.
I stopped writing because, because it was so out of context that I'm like, we can talk about this, but nobody's going to understand what it is. And like, we can't talk. I mean, it's different for them because they have the ability to talk about it without worrying about NDA. But again, we do, right?
Yeah.
So we can't discuss it. We can't give you the context for it. So
I don't know. It came across like they forgot that we don't have the, insight into all of that, or that most people don't, I should say.
Like, this is the kind of content, I think, this is just coming to me like a moment here, but this is the kind of VIP only content they should be doing, right? Like, maybe instead of the dev interviews, maybe we'd something like, let's do a patch notes,
let's talk about the patch notes
a month for the VIPs, right? Where we can actually discuss it with some open, knowledge and context.
I agree, man. Well, okay. So lastly, I want to emphasize something just again for context for people. These aren't the full patch notes. I know that probably should go without saying, but they're not. This is not even a fraction of the patch notes, and I don't even know why they picked these specific notes. And again, they don't even say what session those notes are from. Like, is it the most recent one? Is it the ad hoc tests? Is it, so they're literally just this tiny piece plucked to share. And I really, really hope that people, especially the skeptical people, don't see this in that way. So anyway,
yeah,
that's probably enough soapbox.
I would say don't worry about it, but you're right. I mean, I think you're on absolutely on point there with that stuff. And, this is good feedback just in terms of their presentation and how they put the information out to the greater community, right?
I'd rather have it has halfling voice than purposeful bad communication.
Whoa. Hold on. No halfling voice.
I'm just putting this in perspective. Like,
I can't condone the halfling voice ever for any possible reason. So basically with that in mind, I don't think we need to go through all the class ability patch notes that they shared because it's like for all those reasons we just talked about. But there were some neat, a couple neat little insights. Does anything just overall you sort of took from the class updates that they talked about, some of the class notes?
Sure. I'll condense everything for you guys right now.
Give me the TLDR.
The Rogue and the Wizard got some love. Stealth and invisibility now have visual effects. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Minus talked about no more shadows. What did he was talking about the shadow of the stealth shadow?
The whole thing where like, your character just was completely see-through. Like that was the old, it wasn't an effect. It was just, your character's just gone, but you still have a shadow. Like that was kind of the fun thing about that. But so yeah, it would have been cool to see the effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I'm already diverging a little bit. This is a TLDR. Next one, Enchanter Love is coming soon. So Enchanter's probably going to see some updates. I don't know if they're going to follow up with that or what. And lastly, if you really read between the lines, and I don't mean read between the lines, I mean read what they say and deduce what you will. Obviously, they've added some new abilities. And I guess that's all I can say about that.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it, right? So look for some more class updates to come in the future. I mean, if you think back, we're going to talk about this in a second here, but like they did the Dire Lord last year, and then they did the Enchanter update. There was a Shaman update, and we covered that. We did all videos on that. So, they're fun. And so that sort of brings us to where the Dire Lord update comes into this stream. And this is where they covered some abilities the class gets between levels 1 and 10. There's a whole lot of them. So, I mean, I could go through them, but I didn't write them all down. So, Provoking Phantoms, Boil Blood, Sanguine Shield, Devour Dexterity, Essence Harvester, Vital Cage, and Sanguine Cloak. There's definitely some few.
Yeah,
a few I missed in there.
So many. This segment was really, really good. I had to step back. Like, this was a good segment, but
yeah, it was good. It's good. I have some critique, but it was good. It was neat the way that they did it. I liked how Minus put that video together to see the abilities in action. He did it through some pre-recorded footage. If you haven't seen it, it's quite similar actually to the Rogue video he made when he was still here at Pantheon Plus. So it's on our channel if you want to go watch it. It's actually one of the ones that's gotten one of the most views when he did a sort of explainer video on the Rogue abilities. The theme, in my view anyway, was when Minus stated, talking about the Dire Lord, that the choices of how and when you spend your essence become increasingly more important as you level up. So again, VR is trying to really get players to think about how they're using their abilities, the resources. We've talked about this a lot before. It's not news, but it certainly remains important, and they continue to demonstrate that and lean into that whenever they have a chance.
Yeah, prioritization is a really big theme in this game, and I think the Dire Lord's really hitting that, because you look at their abilities, you're like, wow, that's really powerful. But then you have to remember, like, you have to manage those resources.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're fighting multiple mobs at once, you've got multiple issues. So,
wise words.
Yeah, it's like, haha, look at that, look at that light bulb moment. But I do have a critique that the approach they took here. And I want to say this because in August 2022, they did a video, like a class update video similar about the Dire Lord. And if you go back and watch that video, there's a lot of differences between the same skills that they showed. And I would have liked to have seen a comparison between what was it like then, what's it like now, right? So it's been nearly a year later. One in particular, I'll just use this as an example, but Essence Harvester. If you look at the old video, there was a notation on the skill, sort of the skill pop-up that says it gets an attribute bonus of 25% from your intellect score and 10% from your strength score. And then in this stream, we saw the same ability, but now it has an attribute bonus for dexterity. So, you'll see those screenshots in the video roll if you're watching this on YouTube, but, I would have liked to have known why they decided to go that change. Like, what was the rationale between changing the attribute bonuses for the Dire Lord? I think it would have been interesting. Maybe just a better a better conversation about why. And then they did that, but then there's also, like, there was even another Dire Lord skill video they did back in 2021. And I've got both videos linked in the description here, so you can see what I'm talking about. And this stream that we saw this week was called a refresh of the Dire Lord class. And I want to know what is refreshed, Yeah, I want to know, like, why is it refreshed, and how so? And I know iteration is really the core of game development. I'm not, denying that, but it's like the third time they've done this. So, Desrin, like, do you hear what I'm saying here? And like, how much is too much when it comes to one class, or at least, packaging that as like a dev update?
Well, okay. So, I'm a little criticed out at this point, but I do agree. Given some reasoning and kind of showing how it's progressed, really, I think it really validates the improvements. And like I said, I honestly really like this segment, at least in isolation, right? It was pretty informative, gives a lot of stuff to kind of drool over for the prospective Dire Lords out there. And I like that it's, connected to gameplay. This looks like kind of video that we would want to do, right?
It totally did. It made me think of those ones too, because they're trying to get the information across, and that's the whole point, is to do it in a way that's, like you talked about in the previous bit there, putting it on screen, making it digestible, right? How we learn.
Yeah,
right?
This is a great example of it. But you've got some good points. It does feel a little bit weird that they've done this so many times for the Dire Lord, and because the internet. One might assume that I'll use this phrase. Some people are going to assume they're spinning wheels, right? Like they're just constantly refreshing classes, which, full disclosure, I don't think they are, because I'm definitely in the iteration crowd. But if we're talking appearances, I could see why people would draw that conclusion. And the truth is, I hope I don't get in trouble for this, but I don't know why they called this refresh. They're constantly iterating on these classes. And I think using the word refresh is actually a more negative connotation than what is actually going on. Because it's always getting iterated, and it's not like just the Dire Lord. This is what they picked, right? To show how far it's come. And I don't know why they used the refresh as that.
Yeah, it could have been easily understood if it was just like, this is the change, this is how it was in 2021. This is what we changed in 2022. Now this is how it looks now, right? So just sort of timeline that for us. Show us the iteration. And yeah, I mean, you can call it a refresh or you can call it something else as long as you explain what it is, right? So, again, these videos would be really useful for like somebody when the game is in a closer to launch state and people are trying to get a sense of what class they want to play, right? You want to know about the abilities, you want to know about this stuff. And I still want to know, but I also want to know, like, we're following the development. We're not following to decide which class we're going to play at this point. Probably not anyway. And if you look at the comments actually on their YouTube channel, on VR's YouTube channel, you'll see some thoughts that are in line with this. It was noted in the comments also that the website's out of date when it comes to these class abilities. Right?
Yeah.
It's not as important, but there are consequences, just endlessly tinkering with these classes. Again, I know iteration is a thing, but endlessly tinkering is going to be something that is going to be, like you said, the community is going to feel it that when the same class has been refreshed 3 years in a row, right?
Well, okay. Again, I think all of the classes are going to see tinkering all the way up to beta, like through beta.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good thing. And we have to remember that as time goes on, they get more and more tools to make newer abilities or adjust and change ones that they had to make, a while in the past. When they didn't have those tools. And I think it's good to keep them flexible. And I think, again, we're borderline here, but I think that like the Dire Lord's in a pretty solid place when it comes to like player feedback. And because I could say that because they said that in a stream. And all I can say is I would prostrate that they're not lying. But My point is they chose the Dire Lord, which makes a certain image, but one might assume that all of the classes are always getting revised and updated as the game gets more and more built out. And so it's like, it really shouldn't be news. Like I almost would rephrase it as the current state of the Dire Lord.
Yeah.
And
I just want to hear at some point, stick a fork in it. We're done with the Dire Lord for now. We're moving on to something else. Like, but I know that they are working on the classes.
It's not even about like stopping one thing to start another. It's like they're all like,
there's a small team though. I mean, they have limited resources. Like, we both know that. Like, they can't be doing everything. I mean, you gotta focus your resources on something.
You're really pushing my buttons here, Eric, because like I want to say VR, well, do a bit on all the changes that you made to but
I know what you
again mean. maybe keep an eye on the stream. Well, I guess this is going to be aired after the stream, but hopefully
maybe make a point right now to talk about it during the stream, right? So you can demonstrate what you're saying now. Stream, right?
Okay. In that case, hopefully you guys that are listening now have viewed the rogue perspective. I don't know if we'll be able to see all the new stuff for the rogue, but maybe we'll ask Code to like mouse over all the abilities. I don't know, but I don't know how we'll end up having it done, but hopefully all the different perspectives give you a good idea of, versus maybe last time you saw these things in gameplay, how they're looking. I think people are going to want to take a look at Drax's perspective, there's stuff there. Everything's getting changed all the time. And in this case, I really do think it's going to be iteration all the way up, especially as they get more classes online, start to kind of balance things out, and it's an ongoing thing, man. So I maybe I disagree with you a little bit in that. Like, I don't think there's going to be a fork, even at launch. You know, that's one big live service thing that's proven to be very successful is buffs and nerfs. As much as people hate them, they love them.
No, that's true.
Like,
I wouldn't disagree with that. I agree with that 100%. What I'm getting at more is like, I don't want a Dire Lord update in 2024 about the refreshed Dire Lord class in
1 to 10 in 2024. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
Right.
As
That's what
far
I'm
as
talking
content
about.
goes, I think you should put a fork in the Dire Lord 1 to 10. So I'll agree with you on that.
I'll stop pushing your buttons, and we can agree on that point. So, so yeah, no, I'll leave it there. But that's the Dire Lord stuff that I had, the notes that I took from the dev stream. So Desert, I will turn it over to you, the Lord of the Notes, the great taker of notations. What did I miss?
Okay, so we've been through a lot. I'm not going to hold everyone hostage here, but dude, there's a pretty huge one staring you right in the face during that whole Dire Lord segment.
Okay, what was it?
I don't know if you've read my notes, so
I can see your notes, but okay. I'll let you enlighten me.
I know a lot of people probably focused on the abilities during the Dire Lord stream, but they probably like missed everything outside of that, which was they're going through whole new areas.
That was
there's this whole like tunnel system with these dark flame NPCs. I mean, it obviously looks like it's still being built out, but that I don't think that's been shown. I don't even know about the next one. It's like a new ruins area, the Ultheros cultists.
So listen to this. So I did look at your notes ahead of time, and I have some lore about the Ultheros cultists for you, because I noticed it too on stream, and it's one of those things. I actually noticed it during one of the playtesting sessions too, because those were not there before. But
okay.
I don't know anything about the Dark Flame, but I can tell you about Ultheros because that's from the human Book of the Avaloth. That's one of the human deities is Ultheros, and he's actually like the gatekeeper, like the second in the underkeeper, I guess, of the primary human deity. And Ultheros speaks for souls that depart the mortal plane when basically rarely, only the worst of the worst of the worst of humanity are the souls he claims and takes into his keeping, I guess you would say. He's called the keeper of the damned. Wow. And so it's actually a cult. That's
about to say that sounds very cult worthy.
Yes, and there's they wear heavy chains around their necks with locks.
I remember that concept.
Actually, it came up in the Seville video that I made about because you saw those heavy chains all around the place. So I sort of speculated whether or not they were Ultheros worshippers. Anyway, point being, yes, I noticed the Ultheros cultists, and it's very cool.
Awesome. All right. Well, I guess I didn't catch you lacking too much there.
No, I got
that. But I thought that was really interesting. I didn't see anyone in the chat be like, oh, what's this new area? Anyway, but as far as like the rest of the Dire Lord segment, I'd say, if you're interested in the Dire Lord, go and watch that part of the dev stream. It starts, I didn't make a timestamp, but it starts like a quarter of the way in. I don't think I could really condense that anymore here. But I think it's pretty well done as far as, in isolation, and it shows you a lot of abilities. It's pretty great. We did already talk about the whole dual wield versus two-handers thing. That's on the Plus U, so I'm going to shamelessly plug that again. But I will say I hope that they show some stuff past level 10 at some point.
That was something I noticed too. It was only 1 to 10, right? So
I suspect that there's going to be some really cool things in the Dire Lord's kit past level 10. Hopefully people see Nathan's perspective on Saturday for that. But
which will be past level 10.
We will be not all the way.
Yeah. No. Well,
maybe Nathan should mouse over the abilities
halfway.
too.
You definitely, we all should. I mean, there's no excuse not
we
to.
have
I
to
mean,
put that
we
on
all
the
should.
itinerary. We're going to go to our vendors. Oh my gosh. Anyway. I think that's about it for the stream, though. We should probably
absolutely move on. Yeah. Well, before we get to our notes for the week for Pantheon Plus, I do want to give congrats to the winners of VR's latest Gleam IO PA Access giveaway. They gave away 3 passes this time, and that goes to 3 folks: Tommy Nikkonen and Rex McKaylee and Desert Wild Hamilton. So awesome. You guys, they all entered the contest. They all won the giveaway for a free access to the April 2023 pre-alpha session, which is coming up this weekend, as we all know. Yeah. So look forward to seeing them in game. And congrats. Yeah.
See, I guess we may see them in the PA or something. I gotta say, every time we talk about these, though, that it's great that they're doing them. So go VR. This is a great idea.
Yeah.
Keep doing it.
Yep. And so this week coming up on Pantheon Plus, here's what we are working on for the week of April 17th through to the 23rd. The Midnight Crew is at it again, Mondays, midnight Eastern, on our Pantheon Plus Twitch channel, playing Dark Age of Camelot. We're still raiding on Lotro on Tuesday night. We have been befuddled by the final boss of this raid multiple times. And it was an entertaining night on Tuesday. If you watched it, you saw some sparks fly in because it got a little nutty. But that's going to be, we're going to hopefully get it this week coming up, Tuesday, 9:00 Eastern on our Pantheon Plus Twitch channel again. Wednesday, our friend Benonai has Amensol's Shadow Part 2 going up on his YouTube channel. This is where he's doing the audiobook version of his fan fiction. So if you're enjoying that, make sure you're subscribed to his channel to get it when it goes up on Wednesday. Thursday is Parting the Veil on VR's Twitch channel. That starts at 9 p.m. Eastern. And immediately following that is our show, Pantheon Plus U2, with my lovely co-host, Desiree.
Yeah, this one's bound to be good. Talking about masteries, man. Mastery. We haven't been on that topic in a long time. So definitely show up for that and chat with us after.
Yeah, you, Redbeard Flynn, and our friend Man of Rohan talking about what they showed and what they talked about. So it'll definitely give us lots of good material for conversation. And Friday, Redbeard Flynn, the aforementioned Redbeard Flynn, has a video going up on his YouTube channel. It says Story Arc for Ashes of Creation. So I guess it's a breakdown of some of the narrative and some of the lore behind the Ashes of Creation, if you're into that. And then on Sunday, we are having an absolute blast playing Celasta, Crown of the Magister. That's me, Sparrow, Fate, and Grogu. I was going to say we're having an Eldritch blast because Fate has been blasting mobs with her Warlock Eldritch Blast skill. But it's such a good game. It's so fun, and we just have such a enjoyable, it's so slow paced, and we take our turns, and it's very like planned out strategy. Absolutely digging it. The humor is hilarious. The dialogue and writing is,
I love how not your character has turned out.
My character is truly a jerk, like truly so a jerk.
But
yeah,
it is
rude,
so fun.
Like everything.
Like as a viewer, it's such a good streaming game, and I didn't even think about it until you guys started doing it, and now I'm like, this was like perfect.
Yeah, we had a good crowd show up this past time. I think we're getting a nice crew, and everybody's chatting, and it's just so much fun. So noon Eastern on Sunday coming up, and we'll be drinking some coffee, playing some Celasta, Crown of the Magister. And last but not least, the 2023 Dungeon Group Draft is nearly upon us, and that is the event here that we yearly hold on, the yearly event we hold here on Pantheon Plus, and we still need more cards. So if you are not familiar with this little event, we're asking you this year to create Magic the Gathering style cards for your Pantheon character. And they doesn't have to be serious, it can be goofy, whatever. We've had lots of fun entries. I'm going to show some on the screen here to sort of inspire everybody, because we definitely need some more. So I want to show the first one, and this is from our friend Muggs, who's playing an Archive Wizard. So you'll see that one, some cool abilities. I want to point out the most expensive ability is Poor Parenting. It says, when it's Pantheon time, you have no father. Go make a quesadilla. So I really vibe with these parenting related ones, because I'm like, it's sort of how I feel. MMOs take priority. The next one is a very suspicious card. It's from a player named, I think it's Nominus. I can't pronounce
that's
it.
what I'm getting.
Nominus, yeah. Okay, Halfling Ranger. Now listen to these abilities on Nominus. Broken Bow. It says Nominus's bow does not work, but he gets +5 to dagger damage. Very strange.
Well, yeah, that
next one
seem... weird.
I mean, Rangers using daggers is not that crazy, but why does the bow not work? Anyway, the next one is Tracking Malfunction. It says Nominus's innate ranger tracking doesn't seem to work, but he gains stealth. Also very suspicious. The last one is Nominus isn't good with animals, but he gains +5 damage to all animals when accidentally dipping weapons in poison. This sounds like somebody that we know.
Weapons in poison?
Accidentally.
Don't say so.
How does that happen? Anyway, you could be the very proud owner of having Nominus on your team should he be drafted by whoever gets the pleasure of.
Whichever. Yeah, I can't wait.
Whichever team captain gets them. Yeah, it's going to be fun. Last but not least, I want to point out our good friend Gulo's card because it is awesome. And he was also the first one to put a card into the pot here. So he gets credit for being the bold, brave one. He's playing a gnome enchanter with several cool abilities. And I'm going to point out the second one because it's my favorite. It's Memology. It says group members gain increased resource generation through the laughter and enjoyment of shared memes. And I think we can all relate to that. So... So again, that's our dungeon group draft. That is happening on Sunday. I just scrolled down to the notes because I didn't write it down here. But on April 27th, I should say, not Sunday. I think that's a Thursday. April 27th, 9 p.m. Eastern. Yes, it's a Thursday here on our Pantheon Plus Twitch channel. And it's going to be lots of fun. So definitely don't miss it. So that is it for this week's VR News and Notes.
The Pantheon community is full of cool projects, new people, and things that are just worth sharing. What's this over here? Look at that. So let's see what we can find in this week's Community Spotlight. All right, Community Spotlight time. Let's get... okay. I didn't have this written down or anything, but I know we've gone to bi-weekly, and I feel like stuff is starting to really happen with Pantheon, to me, at least. Yep. I feel like I have the same amount of content bi-weekly as I did weekly. So if you ever wanted to be a Pantheon content creator, now's the time. Now's the time.
Yeah, like the free advertising, right? We announce stuff, we tell people about stuff, and there's no cost. It's free to get it out there. So
we do have some great stuff here, though. So as you mentioned, Benonai is still working on Amensol's Shadow, the YouTube, the narrated version, right? And oh my gosh, dude, Benonai coming at us with yet another accent. This one is Old Western accent.
A man of many voices.
It's actually so good. Like his accent is so good. I almost am like, is that his natural accent? Like, what is Benonai's actual accent? Like.
Well, I've talked to him. He's got a southern. I believe he's got a southern accent.
Then I guess that's why it works so well. But there's so much ambience in these. Like that's the thing that I think sets Benonai's stuff apart right now. Is just the ambience of it all, and it's good stories and stuff as well, of course. But like, I really enjoy his. I'm so glad that he's just consistently like churning these out. It's just such a nice thing to listen to.
It's the same thing that when we talk about Mana Rohan stuff, right? He does it with feeling.
Oh yeah.
Right? People who create content with feeling, it makes such a difference, right? And you can tell that they feel it when they write it, when they perform it, and complete it. So,
well, speaking of a lot of feeling, of course, Nathan, I guess you guys don't have to watch this now because the event's going to be past, but I had to throw out that Nathan put out his video announcement for the weekend stream with Co-Carnage, right? Mm-hmm. And I have to give him a hard time because this is the first Pantheon video he's done in 4 months.
Better late than never.
And his reason, he actually, because I left a comment on his video, and he responded saying, Asmongold watches his channel for Pantheon content now, so he has to be careful.
I don't know what that means for Nathan. I don't know what being careful means for Nathan, because I don't think I've ever witnessed him being careful about anything. He's that's what makes Nathan Nathan, right? He's bold. He just does what he feels like doing. I love it.
Yeah, man. But I'm glad to see Nathan at least putting something up with the Pantheon tag there. And also, of course, Bazgrim put up a short, his Baz Flash, just with the announcement that the streamer program and all that stuff, right? To get people up to speed really quick. And then lastly, we've got some more of Fate's fan fiction. This is the Tyr and Growfinder saga. And this is 2 more entries that are now on Pantheon.plus. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, and that's Chapter 2 is Silver and Riddles, and Chapter 3 is Talent and Choices. I remember Talent and Choices being, it might be actually the first forum post that I remember for like fan fiction, actually reading. But now it's up on Pantheon.plus. And also Fate has kind of mentioned that she might be writing some additional stuff. So pretty exciting.
I think definitely she is, and I think we should read another chapter for the next episode. What do you think? For
that would be perfect.
Fan fiction reading?
That'd be perfect.
Yeah, we should definitely do another chapter. So we'll try and get Chapter 2, Silver and Riddles, in here for next in the episode in 2 weeks, and so we can sort of get up, stay up to speed with her work, because it's so good. So
awesome. Well, that is actually going to be it for the community spotlight.
Sit back and relax. It's time for the lore you know. All right, so just like VR is doing, I'm going back to the well with the Dire Lore this week for an extended lore segment here, telling the full tale of Arak-Amel, the Ogre Dire Lord's signature character. And Desiree, as you and I both agree, this is a favorite of ours. And it's one that you actually can't find on the current website. You can get it on the wiki. I think it's there, but you do need a place to hear it, right? You need a place to digest it. So it's, I've put the 3 pieces that we did them separately before. So this has been on the show before, but I've taken all 3 pieces, put them together into one. So it's a full tale. So it's a little long. I think it's about 12 minutes. So settle in, go make a cup of coffee if you want to pause the show and make something, a snack or something, because it's just the amazing writing of J.N. Gerhardt, and I really like the story. So take a listen as we read the tale of Arak-Amel.
Terminus is a world of countless languages. For every one that finds common use, there are thousands that do not. Yet there are single words which may become universal, stepping beyond their native tongue and into the parlance of peoples living thousands of miles away. Words that find meaning beyond their definition, like a helm meant for battle that finds fashionable use in a noble's court. An ogre named Arak-Amel has carried the word dawn to a place of notoriety in the darkest corners of the world, to the degree it is wrongly attributed as his surname. For while a hero is defined by what he has done, the outcast by what he's not, Arak-Amel is defined by the mystery of what he is and the fear of what he will become. The clan, the tome, the victor. Among the 7 ogre clans, this brief recitation is known as the 3 virtues, and it's said to hold the 3 chambers of the ogre heart. It is a stark but simple trinity, one that has passed the test of any good proverb, being less about words and more about meaning. And though these virtues are quite unlike the moral rivets of elf or dwarven culture, they are the timber beams that make the large and peculiar tent of ogre kind possible. The clan. For the tenuously unified clans of Broken Maw, the 3 virtues form a constellation of existence, a map that charts a course through life. Their gods, traditions, and even morality are spun around these 3 points, with the threads of reality woven carefully in between. And with every constellation, there is one star that shines the brightest, one that captivates the eye and whispers with its flicker. Similar effect, each clan has one virtue that sits higher than the rest. The devout Way of Astur prize their tome of war above all else, while the irreverent Fangoon celebrate familial bonding more than relics or battle. Yet in all cases, the The clan is the anchor for each of the virtues, where an immortal tether connects with the all-too-mortal world. The Tome. Since each of the Tomes of War were taken and presumed lost by the Black Moon King over 700 years ago, it may seem that the clans who prize these artifacts are at a disadvantage. Yet, before he disappeared from Brokenmaw, the king had much of the runic ciphers copied by scribes, and these copies he left behind. Even without translation, the indecipherable runes hold considerable power, as even transcribing them is a task deadly enough to separate impostor from master. With such a delicate task necessary to produce so little reward, few clans see their tome as a North Star. Yet, the Black Moon and Way of Aster are patient, or perhaps fanatical, enough to glean these divine inscriptions no matter the cost. The Victor. Among the Dark Sun, victory has forever been paramount. On the Ogre's former planet of Gorok, his bloodthirsty clan was only as strong as its ability to conquer and subdue. The Victor was the Dark Sun lodestar, and the blade thrust into the neck of a foe was as much an expression of purpose as of power. Even their patron deity, Rathamel, tailored his followers to see themselves as instruments in his hands rather than independent beings of flesh and blood. Thus, when on Terminus, the Black Moon King buried their greatest warriors into the clay cliffs at the edge of the Whispering Lands, he crushed more than bones and bodies. If there were no Dark Sun warriors, what means of victory remained? If there was no means of victory, what was left of the clan? When the air settled, and Rothic easily claimed the Tome of War, he shook the dust of their identity from his feet. And though that moment occurred well over half a millennium ago, observers of the Ogre clans remark that the Dark Sun has never fully recovered. The Dawn. Yet, if the three virtues are the very heart of every ogre, what becomes of those who've had them ripped from their chest? What is virtuous for one who has no clan, no tome, and therefore no means of victory? If all that is real is removed, are they even ogre anymore? From the perspective of Brokenmaw, these outcasts are not. Outcasts known as the Dawn. Historians often define the ogre word dawn to mean homeless, or a similar variant. This is an error, as the true meaning lies beyond that category. The oversight may be due to the unfamiliarity with the ogre root word for home, which is something of a hybrid that means tome land. On their native planet, the Tomes of War were the basis for each clan's existence, their claim to territory and legitimacy. Therefore, whatever land the home was in, the tome was in, without exception. Throughout the 7 clans, there are many wretched souls, murderers, slavers, and the like. Yet these individuals are afforded refuge, or even honor within their own clan, despite what the larger population may think of them. To be Dawn, however, is to have no place among any of these groups. There is no larger body to bleed on your behalf, or dare another clan to exact justice for your crimes. Dawn exist without heritage, and are severed from their lineage. No clan, no tome, no victor. Indeed, they are even marked for death by other ogres, who are permitted to kill their excommunicated brethren without cause or fear of retribution. This anchors the reality that Dawn possess none of the 3 virtues, and therefore will not be defended as those who do. In a very ogre sense, Dawn live outside existence, without a past, present, or future. The Dire. Atop a hill known simply as the Mouth, a young Arakamel watched as his father was led in pitch-soaked cords to the edge of a large crater. Located on the outskirts of Brokenmaw, the Mouth was so named after the gaping pit that sat at its summit, a vast fissure that made the hill look as if it were screaming at the sky. From this height, the bodies of countless enemies had been tossed, fed to the unknown beast that roamed in the cavernous depths below. Arakamel trudged beneath torchlight, his 2 older brothers alongside, to the very edge of the yawning pit. In the daylight, the Mouth was a strange monolith, but at night, it somehow seemed alive, as if it could swallow them all if it so desired. Arakamel stood wide-eyed as his father was commanded to kneel before the great pit, and then closed those eyes when the sentence was read aloud. "Into the mouth," a tall ogre declared, for the killing of 2 members of the Black Moon clan. Arakamel had been home that morning when the 2 ogres who served Orakov, the lord of their clan, arrived on his family's land. He was there when his father spoke a single word to warn them from stepping further, and read the hesitation on their faces even as their feet continued to move. Now, as he stood atop the mouth, his face still bore specks of dried blood from the moment his father drove a stone tool into their skulls. Seeing this mighty ogre kneeling at the edge of death, the same dread that rippled through Arakamel that morning returned with impelling terror. "No," he shouted. Steadily his father rose to his feet. Whether planned or in response, none could say. The 6 or 7 guards scattered about the summit gripped their weapons till the wood groaned before taking a step toward him. Yet, before any could strike, his father spoke with a voice as calm as the rain. "Honor does not die, my sons." Without another word, he stepped back off the pit's edge, entering the belly of the mouth without a single sound. Arakamel's eyes followed his father's body, his hands reaching in the air, falling helpless at his side. Now, the ready guards turned for his oldest brother. They did not make it far enough to touch him. It was Arakamel's eyes that changed first. Something clouded over them, a red that swirled for a moment before settling to a black as deep as the pit that consumed his father. With those eyes, he saw a familiar hesitation in the guards, and like his father, he took advantage of it. Though Arakamel was not fully grown, his ability to kill matured in an instant. In this moment, he was overwhelmed by the dire, his body unable to yield until it was satisfied with vengeance. His movements were swift and vicious as a wild beast, and in dying, none of the guards would imitate his father's gracious silence. When the slaughter was complete, the only ogres left standing were Arakamel and his brothers. They dared not approach him, even as the black in his eyes began to recede. With few words, they implored him to flee Broken Maw and never return. As fear washed over him once more, Arakamel ran down the mouth, kicking dust in the dark and leaving his brothers to throw his victims into the pit. In the months that followed, the dire came to Arakamel with increasing power, though most often as he slept. It would seem to warn him of threats even before his ears could detect them. The Black Moon sent dozens of warriors after him, assassins and even groups of shaman, yet the dire revealed them all. In time, Arakamel became less of an ogre and more of what is known as a Dire Lord. Yet, unlike most in that unsettling fraternity, Arakamel did not seem to trust the dark mystery that dwells within. Much of his effort was spent keeping the powerful force in check, careful to wield and not be wielded by. As months became years, he spent much of his time as a soldier for hire, or occasionally leading small bands of Dawn or Dire devotees. Yet knowledge, more than war, was Arakamel's focus, and no matter his battlefield success, the Dire would push him further into isolation. He did not revel or boast. He spoke no reply to challengers or fools. In fact, he rarely used words at all, even going so far as to place a slate mask over his mouth to speak for his silence. In contrast, the Dire whitened his skin, removing him further from the appearance of an ogre and towards that of an apparition. His eyes stayed forever black, with smoke-like stains fanning out around the rim, as if they'd been on fire for years. For several years, Arakamel continued to be hunted, but the body count of these assailants only grew in kind. In the early months, most were killed with his bare hands, until he fashioned the black-bladed weapon known as Moonfell. While he's no longer actively sought, there is a rumor that a bounty remains on his head, and even that his name is carved into the very throne of the Black Moon clan. This is so every successor king who sits upon it will be taunted until the dawn is dead. Arakamel has carvings of his own, but the cuts are into his skin rather than wood. These are the red runes that adorn his body, and their meaning is a riddle without an answer, perhaps even to a Rockamel himself. Some have taken to calling these inscriptions the Tome of the Dawn, completing a rather peculiar circle. One that suggests the three virtues may have power even greater than those in Broken Maw could have imagined. The Dawn, the Tome, the Dire. And that is the lore you know. So, that's the show. And I just want to mention too, you're talking, Desiree, about in the community spotlight about Nathan and not having, any Pantheon content. After this weekend, I can only imagine how much Pantheon content there's going to be just from all the footage from our perspectives and our streams. Like it's going to explode. I hope you keep track of it all between now and 2 weeks from now and the next show, because you're going to have your work cut out.
I really hope so. Like anyone that just needs something to do content for Pantheon, you're going to be inundated. Like there's going to be so much, especially for people that like picking out things, it's going to be a lot of material to go through. But yeah, I'm going to say it, man. It is going to be the biggest Pantheon gameplay dump that anyone's ever seen.
Channeling your inner Nathan there. Yeah, channeling the Nathan.
That's right.
Yeah, it's going to be massive, and it's just going to keep us busy for a while to make content with. And I'm going to make them. I've already made mental notes. I have to make some written notes to actually turn off the UI at some point and get some nice visuals, looking around, trying to do that stuff. So again, by the B-roll footage all day long. By the time you're hearing this will have already happened. So hopefully, if I didn't do that, you have full reign to scold me. But definitely looking forward to it. And again, between now and the next show, with the dungeon group draft is happening, make sure you're there for that April 27th at 9 o'clock Eastern on our Twitch channel. We'll talk all about it on our next show to sort of congratulate, who had the best team and sort of do some analysis of who ended up with the best drafted team. And we're also going to be looking at the April newsletter on the next show. And this is the one that I think is very important, because we're going to do a look back and see if they, where they went with those first quarter targets, I would say, of 2023. The first quarter
will have officially ended. So it's now appropriate
so that'll
timing that we can do it.
Absolutely. So as much as it's hard to believe we're already on the cusp of summer of 2023, it is true. And we're definitely doing that. So with that, Desiree, thank you as always for being a great co-host. I really appreciate all the work you do. And I cannot wait to talk to you again in a couple weeks. And to everybody else out there, have a great one. We'll see you then.
Have a blast, everybody.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Pantheon Plus Rewind. Pantheon Plus is not affiliated with Visionary Realms. Be sure to check out our Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube channels under the name Pantheon Plus. You can follow Theric at Pantheon Theric on Twitter, and Desrin at DesrinDoes also on Twitter. And you can stay up to date with all things Pantheon at www.pantheon.plus. Until next time, cheers, and thanks for listening.